It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Sean Callan. Mrs. Julie Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chapa here. Kristen Norfleet.
Here.
Sean Onmacht. Here. Tim Rice. Jennifer Salazzo.
Here.
And Leah Norton.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you. If you'd join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And seeing we have no one for floor to the public, we'll move right on to acknowledgments with Kristen Norfleet.
Thank you. We are beginning our acknowledgments today at Kingsford Park. Kindergarten and first grade classes were very excited to welcome Plory to their KPS classrooms. The Wild Robot Community Read kickoff event at KPS took place at Math and Literacy Night. Students, staff, and family came together to play math and literacy games and make projects. And students also enjoyed tasting apples from Fruit Valley. Moving to Fitzhugh Park, Oswego County Health Educator Sonia Robinson recently visited and transformed FPS kindergarten students into official germ fighters. Ms. Sonia taught students the importance of correct hand washing and how to avoid spreading germs. Students received official germ fighter bracelets and information to share at home with their families. Next at Minetto, our beautiful fall weather helps us get outside during PE class. Mr. Frank and Mr. Guai's first graders had fun with a parachute while learning to work together to create waves, ripples, and mountains. Then at Oswego High School, congratulations to the Oswego High School students who have earned NYSSMA All-State honors. The All-State concert is coming up this winter. It looks from the picture, Ms. Norton might be one of those students. This year's students representing Oswego are Grant Romanowski. He's an alternate on the snare drum. Leonard Lynn, an alternate on the bassoon. Xavier Vasquez, an alternate on tuba. Romello Velazquez, an alternate on tenor 2. Nathan Hibbert, symphonic band, playing clarinet. Christopher Pineda, symphonic band, playing flute. Noah Whalen, alternate, bass 1. And Leah Norton, mixed chorus and alto 2. This year's Pageant of Champions featured amazing performances from 12 different schools. Congratulations to our Oswego Marching Buccaneers for finishing in first place. Also at the high school, students from the Digital Design and Production class, known as DDP, recently had the opportunity to tour the H. Lee White Maritime Museum, as well as the Oswego Lighthouse. This was made possible through the NOAA Foundation grant that was received last school year. It was the first time any student on the trip had been to the lighthouse. A special thank you to Dr. Bob Morgan and Chuck Hutchinson for volunteering their time, as well as the staff of the H. Lee White Museum. And that is our tour around our schools.
Excellent. Thank you, Kristen. We have one item under Board of Education, and that's a resolution to create an ad hoc committee for the ex officio student board member. Could I get a motion for that?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Sean. And could I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Discussion? This is an ad hoc committee created to help our student ex officio member on board and also create a handbook. We're going to do, it's one of the goals we have for the board this year that we worked out in our workshop, and so this committee will be put together, and that's our goal for the end of the year. Anything else? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I will move on to the superintendent. Yes?
Before we move to that, I know that there had been some discussion about membership on the ad hoc. So I don't know if you have all finalized that membership.
We have not. So that would be a great point. Do we want to do that prior to? I was thinking that we would do that in November when we had Tim here as well. But we can do that. We could do it at the next meeting if we would like to do that.
That's up to the board. I just remember that there was conversation amongst the board considering using policy committee as a possibility, or that may have been something
That was
different?
something else, yeah.
Perfect.
The policy committee was for the board member handbook, which we did sign that over there. But for the ex officio, it was the creation of the ad hoc committee. So would you like to populate it now? Because we could do that, or we can do that at the next meeting.
I think wait for Tim, otherwise.
Wait for Tim?
Either gets assigned when he doesn't want it or gets left out.
Okay, great. We'll wait and do that the first meeting in November when he's back.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. And now, the superintendent's report.
Sure. So we've got a number of reports today. Before we do that, I want to give another shout out to both Leah and a number of the musicians that were recognized as being Conference All-State. Conference All-State, when you think about music, is the epitome of music in New York State. So students will audition for All-State auditions in the spring. And then a very select few from New York State come together in Rochester to perform together. So it is an incredible honor to be selected. So congratulations to Leah, but also to have the number of students that were recognized as Conference All-State from Oswego. The music department has a lot to be proud of, so congratulations to all of them. So superintendent's report today is really going to be focused on our building plans and then our school improvement plan. So I'm going to invite Ms. Amanda Caldwell up first to get things started, our assistant superintendent for curriculum. And then we have 3 of our elementary schools that will be presenting their building action plans this year. Again, remember, this is all directly connected back to our strategic plan and moving our district goals forward. Next meeting, we will have 2 additional elementary schools, our middle school and high school to round out. But with that, I turn it over to Ms. Caldwell.
All right, good evening. As Dr. Kilmer said, I'm Amanda Caldwell. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And if you all recall, Sean Morgan and I were here in March to share with you our designation as a target district in need of improvement based on our accountability determination with the state. That was part 1, and we promised to follow up with what our improvement plan looks like as a part 2. That is this evening, but I am going to take just a couple of minutes to remind you of some details about our determination before we get into what our improvement plan is. So, really, if you think about our accountability identification, our accountability identification is based on data that is essentially 2 years old at this time. So it's data from the 23-24 school year, created our designation that was reported to us in the 24-25 school year. That designation comes during the winter, typically January or so. And then we have until the end of the school year to create an improvement plan that will be implemented in the 25-26 school year. So there's a little bit of time lapse between the data that we're working with and the improvement plan that we are required to put in place. But overall, it's a good reflection process for us on how we're working with students and how we could be serving students differently. So as I said, we are a target district in need of improvement. And the 2 groups that we are designated for in regards to that determination are our high school Hispanic students. This is the same determination we had for the 23-24 school year. And we were newly identified in the 24-25 school year for the performance of our K-8 Black or African American students. So the criteria for both of those determinations at the high school level is based on Regents exam scores, and at the K-8 level is based on our state assessment, our 3-8 state assessment scores. And then the improvement planning process has 3 parts to it. We are required to analyze our data, understanding both local and the state accountability data. And that data analysis really requires us to intentionally look for discrepancies. Where are our students performing well and where are they not performing well, and can we identify some causation there? And then considering the perspective of those identified groups, For this year, we were fortunate enough to be able to lean on the school climate and culture survey that we gave last year in terms of gaining some of that perspective from our subgroups. And then we are also supposed to consider what the data is telling us and what students are telling us in light of our district's vision, values, and aspirations. And I suspect that some of this plan you will hear probably mirrored a little bit, I hope, in the building plans that you will hear over the next couple of meetings. So just very quickly, what we learned a little bit about through the data analysis process. There's a lot of text here, but in summary, one of the discrepancies that we identified at the elementary level was, despite showing growth on our local benchmark assessment data, our Black students at the K-8 level still underperform both on both the ELA and the math assessment when compared to their peers. So for example, last year, 41 to 69% of our Black students demonstrated typical growth on the spring ELA benchmark. However, when it came to the state assessment, their proficiency rate was at an average of 25 to 30%, and that is a discrepancy between the students in that subgroup and the peers in their grade level. The same students consistently also underperformed when compared to their Hispanic peers, not just their white peers, so underperforming compared to other students in their cohort. Similar results in math. Black students scored on grade level or lower more often than their peers on the spring 25 math benchmark. And we identified that no Black students performed at or above grade level across the district in grades 2, 4, 6, or 8. Now, the caveat with that is that this particular subgroup also represents 2% of our district. So for this year, that's 56 students. So while that certainly is not good news, it's a number of students that is manageable to move forward with the right actions in place. And then in the spring of 2024, despite at least half of the students demonstrating growth on the spring benchmark, the proficiency rates on the state assessment, depending on the grade level, were anywhere from 17 to 45%. And so there's a discrepancy between our local data and our state data. And in a nutshell, this is the cause for our determination. Moving over to our high school students, this is very similar data that we shared last year in terms of we are identified for the both the performance and the absenteeism rate of our Hispanic students at the high school level, showing that the absenteeism rate for our Hispanic population is at approximately 50%. And while that has improved over the last 2 years, they are still absent more frequently than the peers in their cohort. Similarly, they underperform on the ELA Regents exam compared to the cohort as a whole. Not as significantly as you might think in terms of in the spring of 2024, 71% of our Hispanic students passed the ELA Regents exam compared to 80% of the cohort. But when we talk about proficiency levels, which is better than passing, only 36% of our Hispanic students are performing at the proficient level. And as you can see, the data for 22 and 23, our proficiency rates were even lower in those years. So, considering the perspectives of our identified subgroups, in terms of the data tells us one thing, but what are our students telling us about their experience here in Oswego City Schools? And what we can glean from our school climate data is that while it's not all sunshine and roses necessarily, we do have some areas for growth, but overall, students did relate their interactions with the teachers and the staff favorably, indicating that most have a positive relationships with the adults with whom they are working. And that teachers do have high expectations for them to do their best at all times. At the elementary level, students indicate that they do believe that students are treated equally, regardless of race and socioeconomic status. That is not necessarily true at the secondary level. So that is also an area of growth and a takeaway for us regarding student feedback. So then we need to think about how does the data, how does the student feedback, and how do our priorities for how we're going to do this work align with the district's mission and vision. So priority number one, in terms of addressing some of these shortcomings, is working on training and implementation of high-impact instructional practices for our staff. One of the things that our instructional team, our curriculum folks, and our principals have sort of started, speaking is that teaching causes learning, and good, effective, high-impact teaching causes better learning in our students. So we are focusing this year on identifying what high-impact instructional practices can be implemented in our classrooms, and that directly aligns to the district's mission to empower and engage students to guarantee their successful future, and aligns with our core values around learning, collaboration, and diversity and inclusivity in terms of creating equitable and high-achieving opportunities for all students. This priority emerged as a result of students continuing to underperform on the state assessments, as we previously discussed. Okay, priority number two is implementation of professional learning communities to foster academic success. So professional learning communities are not an initiative, they're not a program. It's really a framework for how teachers and building leaders should be working together to put plans and interventions in place, both for students who are falling short of our expectations, but also to accelerate students who have already learned our grade level expectations. And so this is priority number two in terms of using this framework as a school improvement framework to address our student shortcomings across the district. And then lastly, this is particularly focused at the high school level. Not that our elementary folks don't do a wonderful job of welcoming students to school, but student induction programs specifically for 7th and 9th grade students, and ensuring that our students get off on the right foot in our secondary buildings and know where the resources are and who they can lean on. Getting connected out of the gate with adults, acclimating to the school environment and expectations, as well as allowing the school to identify which students are in need of academic or social emotional support, is our third priority. And that really relates back to the idea that our students who are not connected to school and not attending school obviously can't perform well in school. So this plan was submitted to the state with these priorities. It was approved, and so these are our focus areas moving forward. Questions?
Question. Sure. How often the priorities that were submitted and accepted, like how often do you check those to see, what type of impact they're having on the current cohort? The other thing that it's hard to understand and put my mind around is that we're looking at data that's with a cohort that, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but a cohort that was 2 years ago, and things change where we don't even, what's our sample today in this cohort? And I mean, I know we had the survey and those, the responses to the survey certainly are reflected in the students that are currently in our schools, not the ones that probably aren't in our schools anymore from a couple, so that we can put corrective action in place like you are, because you have your 3 priorities that you listed. But it's just seems like that's too long of a time to correct something, to put things in place to help the students. Now we have 2 categories. It's just hard for me to understand that.
So,
I know it's not
There
an
was a few
us
questions
thing. I
there.
know it's not I know it's not an us thing. I know.
right. So the spring is the assessment data really that your accountability designation is determined using. Those are administered in the spring. We don't typically get the results back until the summer. And then there is tweaking with algorithms, right, in order to determine the accountability status and the formulas that are applied so that we don't, it's months further down the road before we get our determination back. So back to one of your first questions was, how are we tracking this? This is really an area where we can improve as a district. Our buildings do a phenomenal job, as our principals are going to talk about, tracking data for individual students who are underperforming. We are not necessarily, as a district, in the habit of, but we do need to get in the habit of looking at our subgroups. Because you're right, the students that when Sean and I presented last year about our original accountability determination when it was just the Hispanic population at the high school, most of those students were gone, right? They had already graduated. The only students who were still with us, I think were 5th or 6th year seniors, or some of them were unaccounted for. So looking at those students in particular wasn't necessarily very helpful. But I think this tells us that we need to do a better job of keeping an eye on all of our subgroups, whether it's by race, whether it's by economic status, whether it's by special ed determination, and making sure that globally are we addressing the needs of different groups of students as opposed to at the building level where we focus specifically on individual students for intervention, which is great. But putting systems in place like better attendance measures and accountability and connections with family is where the bigger cohort data, I think, is important for us to get in the habit of using. Sure. Good. All right. All right. Mrs. Sullivan, you're up. Put this down. Is that just a ditch?
Hi, I'm Jenny Sullivan. I'm the principal of Minetto Elementary. Thank you so much for having us here today. We're all excited to share with you a little bit more about our schools. Our Minetto team worked really closely to develop our school improvement goals. I know that you know our faculty is very committed to our students and their academic and social growth, and I'm really proud to share with you what our group came up with. So this first slide is just a snapshot of our 4 goals. We developed these goals. They're tied to the district's strategic plan, and they do support our students' academic and social development. So as I go through the slides, I'm going to break down these 4 goals a little bit further. So our first goal is connected to our Minetto Way philosophy. Our students at Minetto and all of our families know that our vision is for everyone at our school to be respectful and responsible problem solvers who are safe at school. We kicked off this year with a school-wide assembly. At this event, I explicitly taught and reviewed our Minetto Way expectations and our philosophy. And if any of you visit our school on Wednesdays, we call Wednesdays Minetto Way Wednesdays. We all wear our buck blue and our Minetto Way gear, and our morning meetings are focused on reinforcing our Minetto Way philosophy. Every quarter, we invite guest speakers to address our students, and these folks are asked to share how they conduct themselves in our community following our Minetto Way philosophy of being respectful and responsible problem solvers. And this helps our students learn and see how our Minetto Way philosophy can live outside of our school walls. All of these strategies are really in place in an effort to decrease our chronic absenteeism. And we know that when our students and families feel like our school is a safe and positive place to learn, they'll send their kids to school. Our second goal is our literacy goal. Everyone in this room knows how important it is to be able to be a fluent reader and how that impacts your daily life every day. With this in mind, we want all of our students to be fluent readers and excellent communicators. Over the past few years, our teachers have honed their skills using the science of reading, and as Amanda just shared, we know that good teaching leads to learning. Every day, we use what we know about how the brain works to help our students learn how to read. You will notice our literacy goal is to continue to move more students towards reading proficiency. Each month, our data meeting analyzes student data to identify and provide additional support to students. This helps us improve our instruction and helps our kids learn and grow. With a strong curriculum and reading practice, we know that we can develop our students into excellent readers. Our third goal focuses on communication with our families. Parent Square has been a wonderful communication tool, and at Minetto, we have about 99% of our families actively using Parent Square every day. And we also have a very active home and school association, and together we provide monthly and sometimes more than once a month activities that really help our families connect back to our school and foster some positivity. And our final goal is focused on how we operate as a school. We have a system in place to communicate with our faculty and our families. This year, our faculty will take time to review our family handbook and our faculty information guide to ensure that the information is accurate, timely, and relevant. And that's what we're working on this year. And I thank you so much for having us.
Oh, well, that's going to go down. How about that? At least I'm aware of it. Good evening, and thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk about something that we're all passionate about, which is our school, the students, and the staff. So today, I am going to start by sharing the same thing as Jenny that we did. We were given the task of breaking down all of our building goals into 4 units, and I'm going to speak about each subset for just a few minutes, not to exceed 5. Okay, our first goal is school culture and climate. And one of the things that we really wanted to focus on this year was aiming to increase the number of students that are meeting our grade level expectations and reducing behavioral incidents over the course of the school year. We want to ensure that students benefit from the high quality teaching, our timely feedback, and a really great overall positive learning environment. When I stood before you last year, we had a lot of different opportunities for us to show all rainbows and unicorns. And this year, we're getting down to brass tacks. We aren't having the percentages that we had last year. We're getting down to the nuts and bolts and really identifying all of our students that need that improvement. Some of the strategies that we're going to be working on with our school culture and climate this year is really using data-driven instruction. We're going to be looking at our data during our IST meetings. We're looking at our data during our data meetings. We're also looking at our data during our monthly team meetings, which are with myself and grade level teams. And we're going to be using that data and frequent formative assessments to be able to adjust our instruction to meet individual needs. We're going to be monitoring that progress through our benchmark assessments, and we're going to use high-quality teaching practices and evidence-based instructional strategies across all of our classrooms. And where we see that there might be some pitfalls, we're going to be filling those gaps with some professional development to meet individual needs as well. One of the things that we are really working on and excited about this year is Minetto has the Minetto Way, and I think we can all agree that that is just a tremendous way for everybody to come together. So we created Riley Rises this year, and RISE stands for Respect, Integrity, Safety, and Effort. And it's something that we are embedding within the fabric of every single day. So one of the things that we're working on is a common language across our building, as well as a set of expectations. And on the first couple days of school, all of the teachers were given a common script to go through with all of their students on ways that we expect behavior in the cafeteria and in the bathrooms and on the playground and in the hallways. And so therefore, if everybody has that common expectation, we're going to hold everybody accountable for that. In addition to that, we are providing opportunities for faculty and staff to gather together. Oopsie, well, that just didn't go well, did it? See, I'm jumping right ahead toward you. There we go, sorry. I just get so excited and passionate about this, my gosh. We are trying very hard to have a positive learning experience for everybody. And in order to do that, we need to increase our communication with one another across our building, collaborating every 2 to 4 weeks as opposed to quarterly last year. And we are also gathering together for a lot of collaboration with our crisis team. Our catchment seems to have a high proponency of crisis that are student-driven. And so one of the things that we did was come together as a crisis team, and we put together a spreadsheet. And we're going to be using that spreadsheet to not only track patterns and frequency of poor behavior, but it's also going to help us address the needs in a different sort of way. The second goal is student success. Based on our September 25 benchmark reading assessment, this is where you're going to see that the percentages went out the window. We have 174 students that are proficient readers. We're going to use instructional strategies and practices and targeted approaches to ensure that the rest of the 398 additional students do grow in their reading, working toward proficiency by the end of this school year. We're also providing a structured time for teachers to collaborate across all areas, and our goal is to support all students to make growth while at the same time trying to reduce absenteeism. I stood before you last year with an incredibly lofty goal of decreasing our attendance rate by 10%. And let's hear it for being gung-ho. That didn't happen. We did, however, look at the factors that contributed to us not decreasing by 10%. We were able to identify multiple reasons for that, and we've already put together an attendance committee that we are targeting our approaches by using a flow chart of how we are going to communicate with families. We now have liaisons within our building that we are going to be identifying specifically when they reach certain parts or certain benchmarks of how many days absent, and we are identifying with our local constituencies to be able to provide help and support to families that need it. We also are celebrating good news for the students through our community gatherings, which we have been doing for a couple years now. However, this year we have a different targeted approach. We have a template that we have designed so that everybody can follow the same practice. It's a consistent model across our building, and we are providing presentations with presenters every month. Oops. Did I just keep going backward? I'm just so excited to be here. The third goal is community connections. And with our community connections, our school will create multiple opportunities for families and community partners to engage in school events and programs. And our goal is really to strengthen our positive connections that are enriching our student experiences. One of the things that we are incredibly passionate about doing this year is improving our home and school association connections. They have kind of withered over the last few years. Our regime is changing, and so are we. And so we are really aiming to provide lots of different opportunities. We're bringing back Trunk or Treat. We're bringing back our parade for Halloween. We are asking for a lot of extra bodies to help, and so far we have had an outpouring of support. So that's an area we are truly hoping, I just can't get this right, to provide. In addition to that, last year I came before you about our kid garden. One of the goals for our community connections is to continue to strengthen our community garden. Our kid garden has now already aligned with Bishop Commons as an intergenerational approach to being able to provide strengthened community connections. And our last goal is operational systems. And this is a system whereby we want to improve our school community by having an infrastructure that adapts to our changing needs of our students. When we made these goals and put the slides up, we were about 15 students less than we have now. We are growing exponentially all of a sudden in Riley. We have to meet that demand. So we've come up with a couple different ways that we can use Parent Square by everybody. We did plan that for last year. We were able to achieve 99% of our families that were on Parent Square, but now we have an influx of newbies. So we did provide a kindergarten orientation the day before. We got everybody on Parent Square right then and there in front of us, and we need to continue to do that as we have an influx of new students. We also want to streamline our communication. One of the things that we have found is that parents aren't as scary as what our mind thinks that they are. So we are really encouraging our families as well as our teachers and staff to reach out more frequently besides just a quick Parent Square message. So that is all about our school. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to review each one of our goals underneath each subset. So our first one under school culture and climate, we are utilizing the district climate survey, FPS minor tracking data, and the FPS staff collective responsibility survey. FPS staff will strengthen our work and understanding and implementation around the following areas. Our PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports, Tier 1 framework. We will create a PBIS Tier 2 team, and we will hold monthly staff collaboration meetings to build community. We've also streamlined our check-in and check-out procedures for students that can be utilized at our other elementary buildings for turnkey support. And I want to thank Amanda Caldwell for providing the funds this summer for our staff members at FITSU to get trained. So that was Heather Wood, Christina Goodman, Teresa Lee, and Holly Allen. They both got trained over the summer, so want to thank the district for providing those supports. We also created a regulation station in our building to support student needs, and we'll continue to utilize the Leader in Me digital platform and our classroom buddy system to foster a positive learning community where staff and students are supported. And I want to thank Mr. Colucci for also allowing us to utilize funds to support our regulation station. So thank you. And if any board members are in the building, they're welcome to stop by and see that space. Under student success, utilizing our grade level team meeting data and SBIT data, FPS staff will strengthen our work, understanding, and implementation of Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions and strategies to support students in meeting their adequate yearly academic growth, as demonstrated in analyzing both iReady and math data and M-Class English data. We are utilizing tiered intervention strategies document as provided to us by our Director of Literacy, Karen Reeve, and also our math coordinator, Jeremy Amadon. Under community connections, utilizing past MRA, measurable results assessment, so that's our yearly Leader in Me survey data, our past parental attendance data at Leader in Me nights, and past attendance data at HSA meetings. FPS staff will strengthen our work with families and school community by encouraging participation at family events through increased communication. Last night, we had 14 members at our HSA meeting, and that was a lot more than in the past, so that's great. The increased communication includes more parent square communication. We've created a one-page document that breaks down monthly events for families. We're working on placing HSA meetings following family nights to scoop up our families, and we're also utilizing our National Honor Society and Student Council up at the high school so we can get some high school who wants to do their volunteer hours over to help support with a child care piece for families so parents can attend our meetings. Oops. Did I miss one? Our last one is operational systems, and we're under that utilizing our school tool data tracking. Our FPS staff will monitor and maintain monthly attendance data to combat chronic absenteeism. Based on information, staff will develop targeted interventions to decrease last year's 37% chronic absenteeism rate at our school building, which is pretty big. Our overall attendance rate was 92%, but those chronic kids we're really focusing in on this year. And I want to thank Sean Morgan. He was able to get that data. So we really have a great list of kids to look at from last year. And we've even had grade level team meetings to target those kids this year early on. So thanks to Sean for that. And that's us.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. So now we move on to policy number 7. And this is our second reading and adoption of policies A through I. If I can get a motion for items A through I.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. And can I get a second? Thank you, Sean. Any discussion?
Yeah, just again, I wanted to remind everybody here and to anybody watching, these policies, we're not changing existing policies. in the sense of we're doing something new and we're not creating whole new policies as in doing things we've never done before. What we did was we just cleaned up policies so that they were easier to read, easier to understand. So I don't want anybody to look at this and think that, oh my God, what are we doing? We're making all these huge sweeping changes. That's not what's here. What we're trying to do is make the policies basically more user-friendly so that when people read them, they understand what they mean, and it's not just a whole lot of words on a page.
Anyone else? Excellent. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And now we move on to committee discussions. I know we have a couple of things. Would you like to go, Kristen?
Sure. Policy Committee met last Friday virtually with a representative from the New York State School Board Association. She gave a presentation to us about the program or product that they offer for policy support. Right now, our policy support comes from Erie One BOCES. It is something that we pay for. They send us on a regular basis policy updates and new policies to the extent that they're required by changes in the law. The School Board Association does something similar. If you were trying to do a straight-out comparison between the two products, I think the easiest explanation is the School Board Association, they're much less wordy, and there's fewer policies overall versus Erie One uses a lot more words in a policy and has a lot more policies. The School Board Association leans more towards if you need to get into more detail, do it through regs, don't have it be a policy. So I think it's the recommendation of our committee that we move to the School Board Association and away from Erie One. To do that, though, it requires starting with a new policy manual. And that is about a 18-month process. They explained to us that they basically send us sections for us to go over and then go through the approval process like we do at meetings. And that after about an 18-month period, we would be up to date with a whole new policy manual. And that they're there to provide ongoing support. And then once we have the whole new policy manual, then it would essentially look more like what we were already getting from Erie One, which is get the quarterly updates. So we certainly can answer questions any of the board members have about that, but we think that it's in the best interest of the district to try to be simpler with our policies so that all of our constituencies understand them, that our students understand them, our parents understand them, our teachers understand them, our staff, the community, and we think that moving to something that has less words and is more clear is a good way to do that.
A couple of things on the difference between the policy manuals. So first, Kristen's correct. So we've got Erie One and we've got NYSBA. The NYSBA policies, there are fewer, right? So there are state mandated policies. Okay, so there are definitely policies that all boards must have and the state makes it crystal clear. And then there's a philosophical component to policy development and whether or not that resides with the board or whether or not that should reside ultimately with the administration. No matter what the decision is of the board, whether it is we stay with Erie or whether we go to NYSBA, just because a policy manual has a specific set of policies does not limit the Board of Education from creating policies outside of that policy manual, right? So I don't want anyone to believe that if we change manual and maybe we reduce the number of policies, that somehow you are handcuffed or shackled to not be able to create policies that you think are important. That's not the case. You still can. This is the policy service. They help and advise us. If there's a topic that the board is interested in, really believes a policy should be in place, both offer opportunities for us to connect with to help in policy development. We also have a law firm that would, again, help us in that. So there's lots of resources for the district to help us in that process. So again, it really comes down to the philosophy of the Board of Education and the district as to, hey, is Erie One meeting our needs or do we want to make a shift over to NYSBA? But in either case, understand that you have flexibility. You are not locked in. If you believe that there should be additional language in a policy, you as a board have the authority to do that. right? So this is just based on, here's the recommendation. NYSBA really points to law, tries to address the consistency of what is truly needed to be addressed, and leaves the rest out. The one piece that I would like to at least point out, philosophically at least, the more policies you have, the more likely I will make a mistake in not meeting one of them. Right? So the more rules that we create for ourselves is the more opportunity for us to miss. And it's not to say that we need to be highly regulated. We are a state agency. We need to make sure we're serving our communities well. But there is something to be said about ensuring you have a tight, very consistent and clear policy manual. So therefore everyone, the board, administrators, staff, and the community fully understands what is expected and how we will approach our business.
The other thing I would say is the more comprehensive a policy is, the longer it is, the more it opens to different interpretations, right? You just think about the more words you have, the more people can read it different ways. So, you know, you may be thinking, well, why do I always talk about making the policies less words? Because the less words you have, the clearer it is, and there's less opportunity for people to read it different ways and have different interpretations, and therefore say we haven't done something we're supposed to do, or people not do what we want them to do because they read the policy different than we intended it. So that's why I'm always talking about let's have fewer words, let's have fewer words. It's so that everybody understands what we're trying to do, and there's less room for error on everybody's part.
Like I remember last year when I was on the policy committee, like our homework would be to review, you know, I don't know, however many policies that Ray would give us to review, and we'd all come back with a highlighter. They'd be highlighted, they'd be underlined, they'd be marked up. And, you know, just 3 different people reading that, there might be 3 different takeaways. I mean, and we're just like, what does that mean? And then Julie would say, well, I think it means this, and you'd say that. So really, it does, being part of that committee, the reduction in the verbiage and the lengthiness of it really helps, you know, bring everybody on a common denominator, if you will. If we made this move to NYSBA, like when, did I miss it? Like when would we think about going over to, you know, and leaving?
So this was simply an opportunity where policy committee wanted to bring it to the full board for consideration. If there is interest, at the next meeting, there should be a vote of the board to make a decision as to whether or not we move in that particular direction. Once I receive orders from the board that is the direction you wish, then we'll start working with NYSBA on developing a calendar. Right, so we've paid for Area 1 services this year. We can start it this year. There's opportunities for us to start it at any time. So it really just comes down to one, understanding what's their workload. They have a limited number of resources to support districts in making this switch. So understanding when we can get on their books, and then what does it make sense for us? Again, as Kristen had already mentioned, it's probably an 18-month to 20 to 24 month process. It is something, there's a cost, it's about $10,000 for a shift such as this. It is paid over 2 budget years, $5,000 in each of those budget years, and they're not necessarily consecutive budget years. And then there's also the ongoing update service that we would also end up being a part of as well. But there is no definitive timeline. That'll just really depend on the direction that the board wishes to go, and then that will require me to kind of connect with NYSBA to identify when we could possibly start and when does it make sense.
They did say, though, a few months, once we start going, a few months before we get the first section from them, and then likely the next chunk, the next section, like every other month.
So they'll have this all mapped out.
Yeah.
Like it'll be mapped out.
Correct.
For the 18 to 24 months.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Kristen. Jen, you had a quick update?
The audit committee will meet tomorrow with Tom Zuber at 8 a.m. in the superintendent's office to review the 24-25 external audit draft. And then the final document will be presented next regular meeting, October 21st.
Excellent, thank you. I think we're all good. We can move on to the consent agenda. Two items there tonight, A and B, if I can get a motion for items A and B on the consent agenda. Thank you, Julie. Can I get a second? Thank you, Jen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And we move on to personnel. Again, if I can have, without objection, items A through H for personnel. Items A through H.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. No discussion or any, we do have a couple of retirements, or one retirement in there. And just, as always, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for their time that they put in and give their time to the district. So thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Over to finance. We only have one thing under finance, and that's the agreement between the Oswego City School District and the Research Foundation for the State University of New York, the Oswego Meteorology Program. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Julie. And a second? Thank you, Sean. And this is our agreement with our snow belt. Yes, they tell us where the snow belt's going to be, and we hope we know where it's going to be. Yeah, hopefully we don't need it. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, motion carries 6-0. And now it's time for our student representative discussion. Leah.
Hi. So this week is a busy week for the students. As a lot of people know, it's homecoming week. So we have Spirit Week this week. Tomorrow night is the Buck Booster Blue Parade. And right after that is the Powder Puff game. So go seniors. Hopefully we win this year. Then we have the homecoming game on Friday. The marching band is going on a trip to Ohio this weekend. We're performing at Ohio State and then going to Cedar Point. And then I've reached out to all the principals, like I said at the last meeting, and I've reached out to all the most of the student council reps. So what I'm doing now is just trying to figure out the best way to meet, and I want to try to have a plan by the end of the month to figure out the best way to go about reaching out to all the students and engaging with the students at all the elementary schools in the middle school. And then still with the student council at the high school, figuring out the best way to reach out to the students in the high school too. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much. And now it's on to items from the board. Do we have anything for items?
I do.
Yes.
One, Leah was kind enough to give me tickets to the band competition, the last meeting, and I went, and it was fantastic. My daughter was there taking pictures for yearbook, and we watched Oswego's performance. I was very proud. They did an awesome job, a great combination of music plus acting. I think their program's called Wanted, right? And it's like the Old West. It's really neat. So congratulations to them. I know they got first place on that. Also, I wanted to share a quick story. It's in the context of my daughter playing volleyball, but it really has to do with teachers. They had a teacher appreciation night, and each varsity player was asked to personally invite a teacher to come for the teacher appreciation night, and they do it every year. And most of the kids invited teachers from the high school, but a couple of kids invited teachers that were further back in their education. And one of our students, who's a senior this year, Hannah Barbera, invited one of her elementary school teachers, Erin Sabatini. And I was tasked with checking in the teachers when they got there, and then I read what the students wrote about their teacher during the ceremony. And when I checked in Erin Sabatini, she was very emotional and so grateful that as an elementary school teacher that she was being recognized at a high school sporting event. And I shared that with Hannah, and Hannah felt really good about that. And I read what Hannah wrote about her, which included a memory about something they had done in their classroom, and it was cute. And then Erin came up to me again after the game and thanked me, and again reiterated how much it meant to her as an elementary school teacher to be remembered by a senior in high school. That she said, elementary teachers never get invited to these things. You have no idea how much this means to me. And it came at a time that I really needed to know that I was important to somebody. And she was just very, very touched. And then the next morning, I woke up to an email from her again thanking me. So the moral of my story is telling teachers they're doing a good job has more of an impact on them than I think I ever appreciated. I mean, my kids, I've always encouraged them to, to be great to their teachers, but I felt proud that I was able to participate in doing that for her, and all I was doing was like running around behind the scenes and like making arrangements. So I think the message to everyone is you can never tell a teacher enough how great they are, how much of an impact they made on you, how much you appreciate them. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to interact with Erin Sabatini to teach me a lesson that I needed to really know and understand in a way that I didn't appreciate before.
That's great.
And that's awesome. And I do know that, at least as of recent years, I know a lot of the athletic programs are trying to do that with reaching back, whether it be high school, middle school, or elementary schools, and Teacher Appreciation Night. I think that's one of the best nights during the season. So I hope that the parents that are involved continue to do that, and of course the coaches and everything, because it's a great night.
Yeah, I was just going to add in, I had seen one district where they have, at the end of the year, students with 4 different teachers throughout their life, throughout their student career, and bring them together for a dinner and celebrate them. And it's, I think, the top 25. And it's not necessarily top 25 in the district. They're chosen throughout the district. It's not just for grades. And those 25 step forward with the teachers who affected them most during their life. It'd be a wonderful thing to start. But it's
very
great. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, Ms. Leah, I don't know if when we do our ad hoc committee about creating that, we certainly, I'm guessing, would love your input, to make sure we get it from your vantage point as well, how we create an onboarding process and a student handbook for you. So I just put that out there. Excellent. Anything else? No?
Just wanted to say thank you, ladies, for your presentation. I love hearing about your building goals, and I look forward to hearing you at the end of the year. But I also wanted to say it's really refreshing to hear all 3 of you echoing the same sentiments about home and school and getting families into your buildings. Because I don't know which one of you said parents are scary. We're not scary, but I get it. We kind of went through a period, I think, after the pandemic that, as a parent, there was this wall that was built. So I think it's really great to hear that wall is being broken down. And thank you, Amanda, also, because that was very thorough and I understood it very well. I just wanted to say one other thing about food service. And I've been attending a lot of sporting events lately, and it's really great to see such a excited food service staff in the concession stands. And I do recall, and I think Sean and Kristen and probably other people in the room can remember a time when we didn't have concessions at anything in our district. So Matt and his team are doing a great job. They're very friendly, and they're excited to be there, and they're really great to the students who I think are sometimes a little excited themselves at the window. So it's really great. So kudos to them.
If I could piggyback off that, just last week we had senior night for the boys varsity team, and afterwards, a little tailgate for the boys and their families. So we brought some food in, but we needed to have it warmed up. And typically after halftime, they close concessions, clean up, and they're on their way. But we had asked if we could just plug some things in to have it warm for after the game. And the ladies there, like, without resistance, oh, absolutely, bring it in. And they stayed there and everything so the boys could have a nice gathering afterwards. And, to just echo what Julie said, only a short 3 years ago, I mean, that didn't happen here. That was a fight. That was a battle to have something like that at our athletic contests. So I say thank you to Matt and his staff for what they're doing and hosting all that.
And I just want to say one more thing, just on keep on doing the little things. I don't know who did it, But I pointed out before to Sean and Ray, but out on the sign out here in front, the Buck logo had been hanging over for quite a while and just been hanging over. And somebody went through, took it off, and replaced it with new ones. And it is just those little things that make a big difference. So I just say to everybody, keep on doing the little things. They're always noticed and appreciated, whether it's teachers or whether it's grounds people or food service, the little things, they make a big difference. So thank you. And we will have a need to move to executive session for employment history of a particular person or corporation. If I can get a motion for that, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Julie. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Have a good night.